Hello, and welcome to the House of Vibe podcast. Today we have Keith Ulrey. What's up, man? How are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
No problem. We were just talking about last names. I actually thought of this as well. Where does the name Ulrey come from?
Well, it's funny you should mention that because growing up for decades, I was told, and my entire family, we would tell people that we were Dutch, from Holland or the Netherlands. Mm-hmm. And for years. And then about 15 years ago, my grandfather passed away. Okay. And we were all at the funeral, and somebody in the family said something about us being Dutch and our heritage. And my uncle said, "What are you talking about? We're German." Well, it turns out my grandfather, who was a World War II vet, he was so just disgusted at being affiliated with Germany that he refused to say German. So it was basically his mispronunciation of Deutsch. Oh. So he would tell people for decades he was Dutch. Wow. And so we thought we were Dutch up until like 15 years ago. So we're German. Wow, that's so Ulrey's a German name.
Wow, that's intense. So he was in World War II. Wow.
Yeah. So we laughed. Crazy. I mean, we thought it was hilarious. It's like those commercials funny. You see.
Yeah.
It's like, I thought I was Irish. I'm really Scottish. And the guy's wearing a kilt or whatever.
Yeah. Did you happen to do the, what is it, the 23andMe thing?
No, I have not. Yeah. My sister did it. And she texted us all the image. And it's funny because it basically said like 99.9 repeating % Northern European. Like, I'm as vanilla as it gets. You know what I mean? Like, I'm just so white, it's just not even funny. And my sister, she was like, I don't even know why I did this.
Like she just knew already what she was.
To get the answer she already did.
Yeah. Like, why did I even do this? You know what I mean?
That's funny.
It's a reassurance, basically.
So, long answer, short answer, it's German.
Okay, that's cool. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I haven't done it yet. I think my dad told me that I have like Spaniard. My dad's from Cuba, and I know my grandfather's also Cuban. On my mom's side, my grandfather is half Chinese and Cuban, so I have a little bit of that in me as well.
Interesting.
Yeah, so I don't know. I wonder if I have any. Well, European would be Spain, but yeah. Anyway.
Yeah, European. Huh?
And she's Colombian.
It's European. Yeah, pretty through and through.
Through and through. That's awesome.
South American.
So the main reason why we have you on here today is because you are a man of many interests, first of all, and not only. Well, I guess the other thing that I was thinking is that you are another staple in this scene. I don't know how long you've been here in Tampa. So
born and raised
in Tampa.
48 years. Well, I'll be 48 in October.
Wow. Okay, that's crazy. That's awesome. So that was my first question: was where are you from? So my second question is, when did you start playing music?
Actually, I was kind of late to it. Excuse me. I grew up in the church, so I grew up like singing in the choir and all that, like a lot of people do. Mm-hmm. So I always loved music and singing. And even in high school in the 80s, like, dude, I was like the TV show Glee. That was my life.
Oh, really?
Full blown like show chorus, the moves.
Really?
I had dreams of like going to Broadway and doing that. And then I'd always been into music, heavy metal and stuff that was real big in the 80s. And then I discovered punk rock and what was called alternative at the time, New Order, The Cure, stuff like that.
Okay. That's
and
good
so
stuff.
that just kind of changed me. And then it was after high school. I'd graduated high school, so I was probably 17, 18. Mm-hmm. And some friends of ours wanted to form a band, and we didn't have a drummer. And I was like, well, I got good timing. So I just went and bought a drum set and
started playing drums then.
That was it.
Wow, really?
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
And it's funny to say that 17, 18 is late to the game. But it's
is
crazy to hear stories from other people that are like, yeah, since I was 5, I'm like, that's crazy.
Yeah. So I definitely wasn't growing up in like a musical family by any means. You know what I mean? Like, as a matter of fact, my mom was very upset when I came home with a drum set. And the rule was you cannot play it when I'm here. And my mom, while I love her, and she's very supportive of everything I do, she's very proud of me. She has never once even seen me snap a snare drum.
Really?
Never. It's not that she's not supportive. It's just kind of like, oh, go do your music. I'm just proud of you. You know, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So,
has she listened to any records?
Yeah, she has.
Okay, that's cool.
She knows the music.
That's cool. Wow, that's crazy. So, yeah, 17, because I think I also kind of got got started late. My first love was rap, and
Right.
then I got into like the Beatles basically in high school.
Of course.
And then I started playing guitar when I was 15, so I would say that's kind of late as well.
Sure.
But that's interesting though. So how long did it? So was it like an everyday thing for you then when you were starting to play drums?
Yeah, I just in my bedroom like hours, man. I mean, dude, within 2 or 3 months we were playing shows. I mean, we were opening for bands. I mean, we opened for let's see, I started playing in like 1990. By the spring, my band, we recorded a demo and we're selling it, and we opened for Green Day in like 1991.
What?
In Ybor, like before anything.
Holy shit.
Yeah, it
that's
was
so
cool.
cool, man.
That's crazy.
Wow.
So we were playing cool like punk rock shows and stuff
Yeah.
like that. It was cool.
I was gonna say that's a good time to be in it.
Mm-hmm.
Not 90s. It's
Very early 90s
Yeah.
too, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, it was, you know, I was just very fortunate, and I caught on quickly and could keep a beat.
That's so cool, man. Wow.
You know?
How different was, I guess, Tampa back then from now?
Very well. I mean, Tampa, the city or the scene, the music scene.
Well, I guess a little bit of both, honestly.
Tampa, the city, I can't really say because I always kind of moved in my own little bubble, which was the music scene. You know, record stores, going to shows, hanging out with my friends. So as far as the city,
Can't tell.
I don't know. I mean, excuse me, I'm sorry. I'm not quite sure. The music scene was vastly different. I mean, we were coming out of the 80s, particularly the punk scene. It was very violent.
Like physically.
Skinheads.
Oh wow.
Oh, yeah. I mean, just watch your back. You know, you'd go to a show, and it was like, okay, am I going to be okay tonight? You know, travel in packs. Ybor was pretty much a ghost town. There was a couple businesses, a couple bars, and, like, if you wanted to go to one end or the other, like, you had to go with a group of people. You didn't walk down 7th Avenue by yourself.
Wow.
And so shows were very violent, and, you know, it was, you know, the pre-MTV pit, as I like to call it, like where you just rough and tumble, and you know what I mean? And, before a pit became like a normal thing that happens at every show.
Yeah.
You know? So in that case, in that way, the scene was very different. But in a lot of ways, it hasn't changed much. It was still going to shows, meeting people. Hey, you're in a bit cool. Let's set up a show. All right, I've got this place over here.
Right.
Let's do that. I'll make the flyers. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
So that's all been the same for 30 years. That hasn't changed at all.
Have the venues been predominantly in the same areas, or have they changed as well?
I would say they change, yeah. I mean, there was a couple places in Ybor, offshoots of Ybor. There used to be a bar near Skipper's Smokehouse called the Stone Lounge. That was around for 2 years, and they did shows 7 nights a week.
Oh wow.
There was a record store off of Hillsborough and Hanley called Tarantula that did shows for about a year and a half. And so, yeah, it was just all over the place, really. You know what I mean? Just whoever was allowing things to happen.
Right. Because now it feels like it's kind of focused in like a certain area, you know, like, I mean, Ybor is a big one.
Yeah.
You know, and so when we first moved up here, that was like, we were like, okay, there.
Yeah.
Right? You know?
Sure. Well, I mean, and also, too, it's like, back then the scene was very musically incestuous. So, and what I mean by that is, like, you'd be at a hardcore punk rock show, and then the next night you'd go see a folk act, or, you know, just, it was very versatile, whereas now you have these different kind of arms, where it's like you've got the house show punk scene, and you've got the warehouse punks, and you've got the art, you know, people doing the noise acts and the, you know, the feedback and all that, and then you've got bands that, you know, are playing at the Brass Mug all the time, and there's not a lot of crossover. You know what I mean?
So you go to specific venues to hear specific things.
Right. Or you only belong to one of those arms. You know what I mean? Like, you're not going to everything.
What do you think about that? Do you like that older kind of diversity, or do you prefer this? Does this make more sense now?
It's a little bit more focused now because, like I said, if I want to go to a certain type of show, I know where I'm going to go. Crowbar, or when New World was in full swing. You know what I mean? I know that New World was just constant. It was great every night.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But then you'd say, that place, I'm sure that band's good. I've heard about them, but no, I'm not going to.
Yeah, it's not your style of music.
Yeah, and I'm not going to name any venues. I don't want to shame anybody
or
knock anybody down, but there were definitely places in my mental radar I was like, yeah, I have absolutely zero desire to ever step a foot in that establishment. And that's nothing against the management or the people. It just wasn't my scene.
Yeah,
and
I
just
get that.
knew, you know, like, to me, it's like shows. What I'm referring to is what they would call like a cattle call show, where it's basically like, hey, my band's playing. Cool, who are you playing with? These 3 other bands. They had a slot we could play. versus a show that was curated and put together where it's 3 or 4 bands that are all friends or go together sonically, or
Right.
there's a meaning or a reason for the show. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I tend to lean towards that and less than just, dude, I'm sure this band is great.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to go to that bar and pay a cover and wait 3 bands for your 10 o'clock slot. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That may sound kind of shitty, but
No.
it's just,
That actually, it's interesting that you say that, because I do find that even now, for example, today, I do see that happening a lot, where a lot of people are playing with other bands that they know, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I find that that's cool. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
Obviously, like for us that we're new in this area, like, there's a lot of stuff that we like out here that we want to be a part of as well. So that's, I guess that would be the only bad part about that. But regardless, though, I mean, yeah, that totally makes sense. I personally, like, being from Miami, I don't really know if we had that down there. I feel like it was more sporadic, but for all I know, it wasn't. I mean, we were young back then playing.
Sure.
Yeah.
But that's pretty interesting, though.
Definitely didn't feel that. Didn't feel like people were like, "Oh, let me help you out." Like, I don't know. Miami feels like it's a city. You know what I mean? Like
sure.
Everyone for their own. Like, just figure it
Yeah.
out. You know what I mean? And here it was just, I don't know. Feels like that. Like people are like, let me add you to this bill and stuff like that.
Yeah,
And
it's a good scene. You know what I
It's
mean?
friendlier. I would say
Yeah.
it's a lot friendlier.
yeah, exactly.
And my advice to bands that are kind of struggling with that in between is go to those shows where there are network, because some people say, "Oh, I don't want to play, it's too clicky," or there's it's blah blah. Well, that's the way the music scene's always been.
Yeah.
You're not going to get asked to play a show if you don't know somebody that's already active. So I always tell bands, like, go out, be seen, introduce yourself. If you like what Phil and Joe from Broken Mold are doing, don't just email them because a cool band's coming. Go to one of their shows and introduce yourself.
Yeah.
Right.
Or any other promoter or any other venue or room or whatever it is, whether it's the Benz or...
That was actually the
Whatever.
first thing you told me when I emailed you. You said this. You literally told me that, and I'll be honest. I really just had no idea.
Yeah, sure.
So you said that to me, and I was like, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
You told me that you usually just don't book random people.
That's right.
Yeah, which
I vaguely recall that. I've sent that message to so many bands because
Yeah.
I get emails and messages all the time.
Right.
I don't blame you. I think that's probably the right way.
Yeah.
That's the right way to approach it.
Yeah.
Right, because it shows that there's an initiative from the person. It's not like
That's right.
They're invested. They're invested
Right.
in the scene.
That's right.
And that's what it should be.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because then we have a community of people that are supporting each other.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're all on the same page.
That's right.
We're going, like, we're working towards the same goal.
That's right. And also, too, it's like, yeah, I want to be supportive of young up-and-coming bands and stuff. But also, I'm getting older. I don't have as much time on my hands. I don't want as much time on my hands. So it's like, doing a show, I work all day and I'm tired. I want to go home. I want to hang out with my wife and watch a movie.
Yeah.
See my cat. I don't necessarily want to sit in my shop for 3 hours while 3 bands that may blow my mind, but my mindset is already... I wish I hadn't booked this show.
Yeah,
I just wanna
exactly.
Go home right now. So I'm not mentally invested already right out the gate. So that's already even if a band were to come in and just be amazing. Yeah. Okay. So I make a mental note. It ends there.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? I'm not
exactly,
gonna be like, when are we doing this again?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know
Well, and
what
that's
I mean?
another thing too. Like it's a good thing to hear that for people that might not know, because it's nothing personal at all. It's
Yeah.
just that literally makes sense. You
Yep.
know what I'm saying?
Just go out and meet people, man. That's
Yeah.
it's that easy. Introduce yourself.
Yeah.
I'll
I'll be honest, like for me, the struggle was that I consider myself an introvert.
Right.
So it's just hard for me to talk to strangers, for example, like. But it's something that as I'm getting older, I'm just kind of like trying to overcome that and
And here you are in your house talking to a stranger right across from your dining room
exactly,
table.
yeah. Well, and I'll be honest, like I was nervous for this. I'm not
Yeah.
gonna lie. I mean, I'm
Sure.
still a little nervous, but yeah, like that's just the way I am. But
Sure.
it's like now that I'm doing it more often, like
Yeah.
I realize like people are just fucking nice.
That's
you know?
right. Yeah.
It's like there's what you're gonna come over here and like
Yeah.
harm me? No, obviously. So
Yeah.
And you know what? No one's going to blow smoke up your ass.
right.
If you ask somebody a few times in town, whether it's another band or a promoter or a owner of a venue, dude, believe me, they're going to say, "Hey, stop bugging me. I'm not going to book your band."
yeah, for sure.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, like you said, if they're nice and cool, just keep that relationship
Yeah,
going.
yeah,
You
keep
know
it
what I mean?
going.
Keep it going.
Yeah.
Basically,
Basically,
if they're
don't-
not nice and cool, Don't be offended. Just say, well, we tried.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah,
you know.
keep it moving.
And keep it moving.
Yeah.
So continuing on then.
Yeah, sure. Sorry.
No, that was great, honestly. So what would you say were like some of your, I guess, first influences? Maybe like what was the first? What genre, or maybe like the first band or group that really like caught your attention and really like gave you that passion for music? What would you say?
Well, like I said, I grew up in the church, so I grew up listening to a lot of the radio and also a lot of Christian rock of the 80s. So I'd be lying, and I'll probably name some people you never even heard of. I'd be lying if, because you talk to these people, go, oh, I was way into this punk band back then. It's like, no, you were 10 years old. You know what I mean? So I'd be lying if I didn't say my first really formative, like, oh my gosh, were like these bands like Petra and these like Christian rock bands from the 80s, that I just thought were incredible. And I still kind of sneak them sometimes on my Spotify when I had my earbuds in. I don't play it in public. And, stuff like that, and like I said, and then as a teenager, I got into like heavy metal and hair metal. And I will specify hair metal. Bands like Metallica and Megadeth were too heavy for me.
Too heavy.
I liked hair metal. I liked
Motley Crue?
Okay. I liked Dokken. I liked the Scorpions.
Okay.
I liked the spandex and the leather. I didn't like the guys that were up there playing the thrash metal. It was too fast for me.
Yeah.
That was a couple year phase or whatever. But the band that changed my life, and I still follow them to this day with a caveat of I don't like what they're doing, is U2.
Okay.
So I got into U2 in the early 80s, like when they were on their second or third album. I mean, I was young, 12, 13, 14. And it just was like, that's the band that, just the head explosion.
Right.
Just, people now, you look at U2 and say, oh, it's this bloated act that plays stadiums and Bono and his big glasses and, doing the leg kicks and stuff. And it's like, yeah, but you forget about their first 10, 15 years were absolutely magical.
Yeah.
And just changed the world, literally. And so that was the first band that just blew my mind. And like my personal U2 collection at home, I have some stuff that's really rare.
Really?
Like just incredible that I'd love to, you know what I mean? It's
I don't find that surprising.
And so that's like the one band that I still follow them, and I still get the new album, and you kind of like cringe when you get, like,
Yeah.
but I gotta buy it.
Yeah.
I still got 5 versions of the new album, even though I hate it.
I understand that. Like I'm getting that sensation with the Pixies right now. Yeah, with their new stuff. Like my only criticism is that I feel like it's overproduced.
Yeah,
that's it though.
Yeah.
Like I feel like the songwriting is still
well,
really
and
good.
also too, you can never ever. What's the word I want to look for here? You always have to factor in nostalgia. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like if their
definitely.
new albums had just come right in line with those original first 4 albums,
Who's to say?
you'd be, oh, those are great records.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
because they're
exactly.
20 years later,
Yeah.
there's that separation.
Yeah, they sound so different though.
Yeah.
And it's killing me. Like I agree. Like what did I like in those albums was the fact that they sounded the way that they sounded.
Sure.
Like they're so dirty, and it's just like great.
And that's like any band that lasts a long, REM, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
You listen to their latter work and you're like, but they still obviously maintain a fan base.
Yeah.
Are there any bands that you can think of right now where you feel like they're still like I guess older bands that you feel like still to this day are still making good stuff?
Well, if you really just put it in terms of years, like if you take a band like Death Cab for Cutie, they're still considered a new young band. They've been around 20 years.
Yeah,
Their
that's a
first
long
album
time.
came out like
Has it been 20 years?
1998, 1999.
That's crazy. Wow.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's a band I think who has maintained a sound or some sort of relevance as far as their fan base is the sound that their fans like. You know what I mean?
Okay.
Some people say, "Oh, I don't like the new album," blah blah. But it still falls under that umbrella of the sound of Death Cab for Cutie.
You know it's coming from them, basically.
That's right.
Yeah.
Like you're gonna hear it and go immediately recognize it.
Yeah.
There are some bands that have reunited and put out like Ride, big shoegaze band from England from the late '80s, early '90s, put out their first album in 20 years, 2 years ago. Awesome.
Really?
I was just listening to the new Swerve Driver, another British shoegaze band from the 90s. Same thing. We're huge, highly influential. Not super successful, but very influential. They just put out a new album. It's pretty awesome.
Really?
And so there are bands that are still putting out, records and new music after a long time. But I go back to Death Cab because they've been consistent. They never stopped making music. They just continued to put out albums. You know.
Yeah.
But you know, I'm sure some people would say Radiohead. I'm not a fan, so I can't really speak to them.
I'm a fan, so
I was gonna mention them. But
yeah. That's my
But there was
guilty.
There was
not guilty, but
there was a break there though from In Rainbows to after that, right?
Yes.
It was like 4 or 5 years.
Yeah.
Which is
not
that long.
No, because the Red Hot Chili Peppers took 10
That's right.
between their last album and Stadium Arcadium.
That's right.
Yeah. But yeah, Radiohead.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's one of my favorites, but
So
he got me into them. It's his fault.
I think that answers your question, or at least gives an example.
For sure.
To the
Do you
question.
like Death Cab for Cutie?
I do actually.
Okay.
They've got 1 or 2 albums that aren't my favorite, you know, but I don't think that they were like departures. I just don't think they were a good batch of songs.
Yeah, yeah.
You know what I mean? They still sounds like Death Cab when you listen to it.
Yeah, because I don't really care for Death Cab, but like now that you mention it, like I can agree with that. Like at least they've sounded like them
Yeah.
throughout the whole thing.
Yeah.
You know, like there hasn't been like that huge break where it's like you hear from their friends, they're like, "Oh, that sucked."
Yeah.
You know. So.
And there's other mainstream, like if you're talking mainstream, you could put Coldplay. Like there's bands that are what we now refer to as legacy acts. Like they'll be around forever, whether the band is or their legacy.
You like Coldplay?
I like the early first 3 or 4 albums.
Likewise.
You know what I mean?
Likewise.
You know.
I agree with that. Yeah, I yeah, from like a personal level, like the way that you were, because I was actually going to ask you like to go more in depth with that with you two and like what you found, what did you find that changed that that you didn't like about them, but I like for me personally with Coldplay, I just feel like they went into like very poppy stuff.
That's exactly right.
Which is not like I don't mind that, right? Because I'm sure they have an audience for that. And the other thing too is like I don't feel like they're doing it for money, right? Because they were already making a lot.
Sure, right.
Yeah.
So it's like I feel like this is just what they're into now, and that's fine, man. Like it's cool. I'm not a fan.
I think artists like that, and U2 in particular, I've had this conversation a million times, is U2, this is my personal quote, have a very bad habit of making decisions that they think are awesome decisions and that are really terrible decisions.
Like
and what I mean by that is like, they'll put out an album and go, oh, well, we were really into like British dance music, so our new album is going to be British dance music. Well, I'm way into country, but the new Pohgoh record isn't going to be
country
slide guitar and violins. You know what I mean? Like, cool, you're into that. That doesn't mean you have to put out a record like that. And they've done that for the last 20 years. Like, oh, we're really into this right now.
Do you think that they're
cool?
Do you think that it's more of like they're trying to stay modern? Do you think?
I think it's a little bit of trying to stay relevant, and then it's also just that they've always been that way. I mean, dude, I've followed U2 for decades, and I've read everything there is to read, and the interviews, and TV interviews and stuff like that, and they've just always been that way.
Yeah,
just always like, this is what we're just kind of creeping into the music, this is what we're really into, and it's like, oh, great.
Here we go again.
You know what I mean? And it kind of stinks because like there'll be a couple years before the album comes out and they'll already be talking about it, and you can just tell by the way they're talking, like, oh, this album's gonna suck.
Oh man, that's a bummer. Wow.
Like just by what they're getting into, you're no, don't try to do polka.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna lie.
So I find it weird when bands do that.
Yeah,
I agree.
I have to. I'm gonna have to agree with that as well. I'm not a huge fan of them, but I did go see them during their the 360 tour.
I saw that tour.
That was pretty awesome.
It was cool.
I'm not gonna lie. I enjoyed it thoroughly. Like I was there with my dad, and it was a pretty cool experience. I was like, well, it was also like I was young at the time as well, and I think that might have been like the second band that I seen live.
Yeah.
Yeah, like literally live.
And
like
a huge
I saw.
act.
And the first band was the opener.
The first band? No. It was actually the first one that I saw was Paul McCartney. Actually.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah,
that's
which was really cool to see.
Well, I will say this: as far as U2 and the big monster touring machine that they are. They do put on one hell of a show.
Yeah.
So whether you're not into it or not, like if somebody ever says, "Oh, I got a cheap ticket," or free, just go.
Yeah.
It's an experience.
Yeah, it is.
Whether you're into the music or not, and believe me, I'm one of those hardcore, shitty, crusty fans that are in the audience going, "Oh, this song sucks." Looking at my watch, you know what I mean?
That's hilarious.
But that's like
But you're gonna go. Huh?
I'm gonna go every year.
At least you go, man.
I've seen them every time they've been since 1987.
Because do they still play a lot of the old stuff that you're into?
They go through phases.
Okay. Like the tour, like depending on the tour that they're playing.
Depending on the tour.
Okay.
And every once in a while they'll pull out a creeper. You know, like on the 360 tour, they had an album called Unforgettable Fire from 1984. Arguably my favorite album of all time.
Nice.
And the album had just hit like a anniversary milestone. I can't remember. And they played the title track, which is one of my favorite U2 songs of all time.
I must have blown your mind.
Oh, it was so amazing. And then right when it was over, I was like, back to the garbage.
Yeah. Damn it, it's over.
But for those 3.5 minutes, I was just like, ugh. You know
That's
what I
awesome.
mean? Yeah.
I feel the same way with Modest Mouse. Like, I go and I'm like, God, don't suck so hard this time, please. You know, and then like I go to an Orlando show actually, and I was like, I'm like literally I'm on the way and I'm thinking like, I didn't say this, I didn't want to ruin it for everyone in the car, but I'm like, oh my God, I'm driving to Orlando for this.
Yeah.
For the love of God.
Yeah.
Come on, man. And it was actually like the best Modest Mouse show I've ever seen.
Yep.
Smaller venue too, and I think
Hard Rock.
that might have something to do with it. Oh, it was a Hard Rock. I'm sorry, I was talking about the one in downtown that we saw.
No, not that one. The one I went with Montes.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah. But it was fantastic, and I was like, thank goodness.
It's awesome. And I think I just burped into the microphone. If that's so.
No,
Just
that's
gonna give you a fair warning on that right there.
Do that as much as you want.
He does it all the time.
Well, I forgot there was a mic here, and I did it like kind of thinking I was being chill, and I was like, oh no, there's a microphone like 6 inches from me.
I'm just gonna put delay on it.
It was a full like Homer Simpson like.
So the first band that you were talking about, was that the formation of Pohgoh, or was that a different band?
No. I was in other bands at the time. We became active and opened up for a lot of people and played a lot of local shows, mainly punk rock type stuff. You know, we were highly influenced by like Descendants and a lot more of the kind of more melodic punk. Mm-hmm. You know, that went on to be called pop punk before that was a thing.
Okay.
So we just used to call it like melodic punk because that's really what it was. So that was my big thing. I was way into like a lot of the Discord DC punk from the 80s, like Minor Threat, Dag Nasty, stuff like that. Mm-hmm. Early Bad Religion, you know. So that's the stuff that influenced me. And then, I was in a couple other bands that was fortunate to do some cool things, you know, do some tours and stuff like that.
And so, like tour like US tours and stuff like that?
No, actually, the second band I was in, this was 92. I was asked to join. They were friends of mine, and they were kind of forming they were in another very popular band. Actually, trivia, they were in a band called Slap of Reality, who is now back together. And the drummer is Rob, the owner of Planet Retro in St. Pete.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, and so they were like, when I was getting into the scene, they were a very popular punk band at the time. Like, they toured the U.S. and the whole thing. And then when Slap broke up, some of the members formed this new band, and they asked me to be the drummer. Mm. And we signed with this German label. I had never been on tour. Our very first and only tour was a 5-week European tour.
Wow.
Yeah, it was nuts.
5 weeks.
It was crazy.
Back then, how did it necessarily work with the labeling and stuff like that? Was it just that they were sending out demos to labels and the label just picked them up, or
they had put out a 7-inch by Slap of Reality? Okay. So they were just naturally one of the labels like, hey, here's our new band, check it out. And they were like, done, we want it.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah,
how was that experience?
Dude, I mean, I was 21, you know, pre-internet, pre-cell phone.
Yeah.
Just roaming.
5 weeks in a van.
Where'd you hit? If you remember.
Yeah, a lot of shows in Germany. The label's based in Germany.
Okay.
So Germany, we played in Poland, we played in Denmark, Italy.
Wow.
Maybe 1 or 2 other countries.
And so when you're doing that, how is it traveling? Like, what, I'm assuming
it was all taken care of. They rented us a van. We were all in one van. All the equipment was the other band we were with, and so it was just all taken care of.
Wow.
There was no money. It was just more. This is
just
awesome.
Do it.
Yeah.
Just do it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just do it. You know.
I wouldn't
That's
say no
awesome,
to that.
man.
Yeah.
Wow.
So it was cool, man. There was a couple places because it was 1993 when we went on the tour, and the wall in Berlin had only been down since 88, 89. Mm-hmm. So there was still a lot of visible and what's the word I'm looking for? I don't know. Just the two sides of the city hadn't quite been built up.
I got you.
So there was 1 or 2 cities where we were the first American band to ever play.
Wow.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. That's crazy. Yeah,
man.
we played this one place, and it was just in this disheveled, like bomb-riddled room, it was just packed and people were going nuts. And when it was over, everyone was crying and hugging us and this will never happen again. And it was an awesome experience. Yeah.
Wow.
It's like super punk.
Super punk.
Right.
Yeah. And so like, I mean, at the time I just thought this is crazy, but I was young, 21, you know what I mean? Like it seems, you know, when you're 21, you think you're old, but looking back now as a guy in his 40s, I go, that's young, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I realized then I probably just couldn't even take it all in. You know, I was just playing the drums. Where's the next show?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Hey, so you feel like you didn't really, like not necessarily that you weren't appreciative of it, but more of like really like kind of focus on like what's happening.
Yeah. Because it was all new. I mean, aside from going to Europe, I'd never been on tour. I'd never been in a band that serious.
It all happened so fast.
I mean, I'd only been playing drums like
for 4
a year
years.
and a half.
Oh, a year and a half.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Damn, dude. Then you must have gotten like good quick then.
I just practiced a lot.
Wow.
Yeah.
And I guess like for practicing, were you just kind of like playing records, or
Yeah, I just put on headphones and play along to like CDs and tapes and records and stuff like that.
were you trying to like literally like copy like the drum, like I guess like the beats and stuff like that?
Well, I would just play along and just try to
Okay,
learn
gotcha.
because when you're learning an instrument from scratch, well, you know this. It's like I didn't know what a proper drum beat was, so
Yeah.
the only way I could learn was to mimic other drummers.
Yeah,
You know what
yeah.
I mean?
That's
And I'm not a
hours, though.
flashy drummer. I do to this day. I couldn't do a full kit roll. I don't know how to do a rudiment to save my life. I don't even know how to tune my drums. But what my pluses were like speed and my meter staying on time. That's because I was playing along to other music.
Yeah.
Exactly, like you were basically playing to a click the whole time.
The whole
So interesting.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's kind of like that's super important if
Yeah.
you think about it.
Yeah.
Like being able to do that.
Yeah,
You know,
a
'cause,
drummer
like,
that can stay on time probably sounds better than a drummer who's just
Sure.
wailing the whole time, that who just can't play on time for his life.
Yeah.
Yeah, actually, that I would take a drummer that can play on time over a better.
For
I
sure.
honestly
who's
just
playing a 4/4 like just solid
Yeah,
though in
sure.
the pocket. Yeah,
Yep.
absolutely.
So I
agree.
would do that for hours, and then I would mix it up where, like, in the early 90s, there was a big trend of, like, what they would call, like, alternative folk, you know, like the Indigo Girls, and I don't know if you ever heard of them or not. Just two women and acoustic guitars, and that kind of thing got really big. And so I would mix it up where I would play along to these Bad Religion and Minor, just fast, hardcore punk records, and then I would put on something like that where there weren't drums.
and try to play
and play
slow.
and play slow, or just knowing that I'm now the drummer on this non-drumming track. Like I'm playing the beat, whether I was playing dynamically or not, I don't know at the
Right.
time.
Yeah.
But I would just kind of challenge myself to say, okay, now let me play along to something where there aren't drums, and let me just add the drum.
Yeah.
And so I would kind of switch back and forth to those two types of things.
That's
So it's-
interesting.
yeah.
That is very similar to like the way I learned the guitar, but the difference is that I had YouTube.
Yeah, sure.
You had to like literally listen to
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
records, you know?
Yeah.
Like I find it that I could only imagine that if I tried to do that,
Yeah.
that would be a lot harder, you know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? So I guess like you can kind of say like, oh, that probably made you better faster.
Yeah.
You know, than watching
And there's
someone.
things that's interesting. There's things to this day about my kit, the way I play, that are direct instances and influences from that. Like I used to play two toms and a floor. Well, we were practicing with my band, and the head blew out. Well, I didn't even know you were supposed to buy heads.
Yeah.
I was like, dude, my drum broke.
Hey, you just thought like you had to get a new
What?
drum
And my
set?
singer's like, dude, just take it off. So I took it off.
Never
and
put it back
Never
since?
fit. So to this day, I play a 4-piece kit. I used to play my hi-hat really low, and we would be playing fast, and I'm like, and my singer would be like, dude, you should try to hit harder. I'm like, well, I've only got so much space. He's like, well, raise your hi-hat. Well, to this day, I play my hi-hat really high.
You're like, oh my god, I can raise.
So there's just things that I didn't know, and I would learn that still to this day, 30 years later, like I realize in my kit, like, oh, that's exactly because of a stupid
situation.
I didn't
yeah,
know
yeah.
the difference, and
Yeah.
I could still feel and see it like that.
Yeah. The
That's
only
so
reason I know that a hi-hat can be really high is because of Dave Grohl.
Yes, exactly.
The moment I
Yeah.
saw him play, I'm like, so I can put it up there if I
Yeah.
wanted to.
Yeah.
Got it. Noted.
It's happening.
That's great.
So then, when did you meet the other members of Pohgoh then?
So I was in bands, and I think I'd mentioned the Stone Lounge earlier, and that was like a really awesome club. And so many incredible bands just came through there. But it had just recently opened, so this was like the spring of '94. And an old friend of mine, Brad, the bass player, well, he was the bass player in Pohgoh, we were at a show together, and he's like, hey, I got this new band. It's got a girl singer. She's really young. She's crazy, dances around and acts silly, and it's just like this pop, indie pop. And my friend Matt here, he's this kind of guitar, young, prodigy type thing. And it's like, man, that sounds awesome. And so they had a show scheduled, and their drummer who they had been practicing with couldn't play the show because of religious reasons. His father wouldn't let him play the show because it was in E-board, and he said, no, that's the devil's den or whatever. I don't know. Yeah. And so they played with a drum machine, and then they had another show booked. And so my buddy Brad came to me. He said, dude, will you learn these songs and just fill in for us? And I said, yeah. And so I learned the songs, and then after the show, I was like, nah, dude, I'm in.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Awesome.
And that we had a different singer before Susie joined.
Yeah.
She was in the band for a year and a half, and then Susie joined.
So at that time, Susie she joined the band while you guys had the original singer.
They replaced each other because the original singer quit, and Susie was in another band that we used to play with a lot, so we knew her. And
so what was Susie doing while they were both there together?
They weren't.
Oh, I see. So it was like literally like a swap.
Right, a swap out, and it became a completely different band. Like, quite honestly, we probably should have just changed the name.
Gotcha.
Because it was just so different.
Like the music.
And we didn't play any of the old songs. Like, we started over.
Okay.
But we had such momentum going, and we'd already put out records, and we'd already done tours. We were like, I don't want to get rid of this name.
Yeah.
And we realized now, being pre-internet, I'm glad we didn't, because it's a made-up word. And you Google Pohgoh, and we're the only thing that comes up.
Yeah,
that's it.
Yeah.
And so we always, and we're still friends with Kobe, our original singer. And I always tell her every once in a while, I said, "Thank you for coming up with such a
she came
name.
up with the name. Yeah, that's so cool.
Such
man.
a dumb name. I'm so glad you came up with it.
Nothing else could have been attached to this name except us.
Yeah.
That's so cool. So I guess with the first inception, who was writing the majority of the songs?
Well, Matt would write the music.
Okay.
And Kobe would write the vocal and the lyrics. And then myself and Brad, the bass player, we would arrange. Like, let's double that, shorten that. Let's play that halftime. Slow. This should be a fast song. This should be a slow song. And I still do that.
Okay.
But that was it. Yeah. And then when Susie joined, that's what it kind of got a little bit more exciting, because Susie was also a songwriter. Mm-hmm. So her and Matt just kind of like...
Yeah, they started working together. And how do you I guess, like, what do you think were the differences in maybe their singing style, their melodies? Like, what would you say that was, if they had any?
I don't know. I mean, their voices are just very different. Mm-hmm. It was also our influences. So, for instance, in the 90s, in indie rock particularly, girl bands and girl pop and stuff was really big. Mm-hmm. And so our original singer and the first incarnation of Pohgoh were very heavily influenced by bands like Tsunami, Velocity Girl, Tiger Trap, that kind of thing. Just very poppy, upbeat, fun. Mm-hmm. And then when Susie joined, adding a second guitar, it was all about Superchunk, Yellow Tango. It just changed.
Yeah.
It was more about guitar rock.
Mm-hmm.
So their voices, the obvious being they just had different voices. The music just changed so that, and Susie was a different writer than Kobe was. So she would have different types of melodies,
Yeah, which that's going to happen instinctually.
Right.
Yeah, so I can't really say sonically what the difference was, other than they just sounded different and had different takes, and I love both versions of the band. You know? To this day, I'm not like, oh, I prefer this, I prefer that. I still hello. I still look back on the original lineup very fondly and occasionally revisit some of the songs, and
That's cool. Another thing that I saw that you were explaining in that video was that you guys released a lot of singles at first.
Yeah.
What was the reason behind that?
That's just what you did back in the day.
Really?
7 inches were huge, man.
Really?
Oh, dude, that's all you sold.
Oh my God, that's what new single on 7-inch. It says it on that poster. Yeah. I didn't know what that was. I was like, what does that mean?
Yeah.
And 3,
That's it. That was just it. It was a cheap, it was cheap to make at the time, and you record 2 songs and just put it out and sell it at shows or trade it or do whatever, and it was just the way to do it. I mean, we never dreamed of putting out an album. Who does that?
Yeah. That was like that was like the goal. Like, if you could put on an album, that'd be.
So like with the first singer, we were together a year and a half, and we did 3 or 4 singles. We never ever put out an album.
Do you find it interesting that people are doing that again? Like
this
now?
7 inches?
Like, not 7 but just singles in general. Like, I feel like people are putting out music like that, which is interesting.
Well, it's easy to do now, especially with Spotify and Apple Music and Bandcamp and all that kind of stuff. As far as doing a physical single, like a 7-inch, it's more of a vanity project. You know, people go, oh, you check it out.
Yeah,
got a 7-inch out, because not a lot of people are buying singles anymore.
Yeah,
you know, they'll buy an LP, but they won't buy a 7-inch.
Gotcha. Yeah, because it would make more sense, like if you're going to spend the money to buy the whole thing rather than get the.
And plus, 25 years ago, you could sell a 7-inch for $3. Well, now a 7-inch, just to break even, you got to sell for $9 or $10.
Yeah.
So people at $10 for 2 songs. You know?
Isn't that crazy? Like, I would only imagine that back then, people weren't thinking that the value of a vinyl or like a 7-inch like that would be more expensive now.
Yeah.
Isn't that funny how that changes?
Well, there's inflation.
Yeah.
But there's also cost of manufacturing has gone up. There's also the vinyl boom that we're in right now, where, I mean, they're just charging more. You know, it costs more. It's all in the setup.
Yeah, that's crazy. So I get so that was something that I saw that I was just like, man, it's because I did like what she was saying. Like I found like nowadays we're kind of like people are going back to that, not in a digital sense, but like the idea. You know, I was wondering how like why that was.
It's just a quick, fast, easy way to get people into your music. At least it was back then.
And like you said, you can put it out so fast that it's a easier way to keep people engaged. Like,
and cars had tape decks, so you'd get like 27 inches and you'd make a mixtape and you'd drive around and listen to that. And then, you know what I mean? That's just the way you did it.
So I guess you kind of explained this already, because I was going to ask, like, well, so while you were playing with Pohgoh, you guys were here, right, in Tampa, playing like a lot of the venues here, and I mean, you kind of said it already, but I was going to ask you like how like the difference of I guess the scene back then, and you kind of already explained that. So the other thing, I guess, so how long? So you started with Pohgoh, and then how long were you guys a band before I guess you guys disbanded at the end?
We really weren't together very long. We were only together 3 years, maybe.
3 years, wow.
But in those 3 years, we did 3 tours and put out the album and all those singles and stuff like that.
That's crazy. And so with the touring, did you guys plan that on like yourselves?
Oh yeah.
How was that?
Crazy. That's just the way you did it.
And how did you do that?
Well, it was networking. I mean, you know, every scene, it's like now, without jumping ahead, now it's all about promoters and venue contacts. You know, I want to get into that bar. How do I do it? Or that promoter. Back then, everything was DIY. Everything was kids renting halls or doing shows at their house or behind this abandoned laundromat. You know what I mean? And I think the website is still around, but back then there was this magazine that would come out quarterly, I think, and it was national. It was called Book Your Own Fucking Life. And you would buy it, and then it would just be broken down by state. And so you could say, oh, well, we want to go to Tennessee. So you go to Tennessee. Okay, let's look at Nashville. And then there would just be contacts that people had submitted. And it would say, John, here's my phone number. I book shows in my basement. I like Velocity Girl. But we need to call that guy. He's into what we're into. And you'd call him, and he'd set it up.
That's so fucking cool,
man.
Wow.
And so we booked two 5-week U.S. tours like that.
And at that time, like I because I didn't really ask you about, like, did you go to college or anything like that? Like, no. Okay. So
I mean, Susie was in school, but we would tour during the summer.
Okay.
And Kobe, our first singer, was still in high school.
Really?
Yeah, I'm 4 years older than she is. So at the time, she was 17. I was 21, 22.
And did you
maybe older than that? 6 years. I'm 6 years older than she is.
Did you find like you just knew like off the bat what you wanted to do, and you were just like, I'm like, why fucking waste my time going?
Well,
to college?
yeah, it's funny. I've had this conversation in the last few years with people. There was never any. Young bands now are so obsessed with making it. Whether making it means getting on a great show or making it means being on the Tonight Show.
Yeah.
They're just so obsessed with that. We never even thought twice about that.
Yeah.
If you had asked me 20 years ago, what are your musical goals? I would be like, to play the next show.
Yep.
Get in the van. You know what I mean? So we were just having a good time, and we were meeting people and networking and playing cool shows and selling our record out of the van or whatever. So there wasn't any goal or intention out of it. So there wasn't this calculated like, I'm not going to go to college. I'm going to try to make it as a musician. No, it was, I'm a punk. I haven't bathed in a couple weeks. I'm going to just live in my van and with my friends, and we're going to try to get to the next town on the $5 in quarters they just paid us with. And you know what I mean? Like, and we had a great time. That's all there was to it.
I mean, that's literally all there is to it.
That's all there is to it.
It's funny that you say that, because I'll be honest, like when I was younger and I first started playing music, I did have like a dream of playing the Tonight Show or something like that, which is hilarious. And now like all I really care about is just like being able to quit my job and make a living. That's all I care about. Like if I could do that, that would be amazing. Because the thing
that's still a very broad dream.
Yeah, I know.
If I'm being honest.
No, it is. It is. Trust me. Like where I'm at right now, I can honestly say that I'm happy.
Good.
Yeah, because I'm doing what I want to do, right? I'm doing music.
Yeah.
You know, I'm doing this, for example, and my job is pretty chill as well.
Sure.
It's not like I'm dreading my job.
Yeah.
But it would be nice to basically make a living off of like literally what I
Sure.
know. Like,
well, of course, who doesn't want to
passion.
do that?
Exactly.
You know, but I got a very good friend of mine. He's a little bit younger than me, and he's in bands, and he calls me the Dream Crusher.
Oh, because
I'll just tell him, man, I want to do this. And I'm like, yeah, that's never going to happen.
Yeah.
You're never going to do those things.
Well, the thing is that I do feel like it's possible. Like, I don't think you should expect anything.
No.
You should never expect anything.
Yeah.
You should just do it because, like you said, like because you love it, and that's definitely where I'm at now. But yeah, I forgot what my point was. God damn it. But I guess have no expectations, but do it because you love it, and just like honestly, like my goal is to travel, and I want to be able to play music in those areas, regardless if I'm making money or not. I think that would be cool.
You can and you won't.
Yeah.
So travel and make music.
Yeah.
You're not. So like we just did this wonderful tour, which we could talk about later now or whatever. I mean, just incredible, dude. There's no way you can make a living even at that level.
Really?
I mean, there's no way.
Really?
You know what I mean? There's no way. I mean, we rented a van for 10 days. That was $1,000. It was $700 in gas. We had hotels every night.
Yeah.
You know, the tolls in Northeast United States alone were $100.
The tolls?
Yeah, the toll roads up there, just collectively.
Oh
So,
my God! Yeah, no. To go from in New York
Yeah.
go from one borough to another, to go to the Bronx was like $8. My dad was telling me. I was like, "Are you crazy?"
Yeah.
No, it's like it's like $4 each way.
Yeah.
Crazy, man.
So that's what I'm saying. Like, as you think, like, oh man, we're making all this money on tour. Well, no, you're not.
Yeah.
And that was a pretty high level tour that we just did.
Yeah.
So I mean, but to go back to what you're saying, when we got the band back together, we didn't have any goals. We weren't like, okay, now we're really going to do it. We were like, man, let's just put out a record. Wouldn't that be cool? And then all of these things just fell in line for us.
Yeah, like it's almost like, well, so I guess my only, would be the word, like the complicated thing that I'm thinking about with this is more of like, if I don't have that like idea of working hard to get to that goal, like am I gonna still work hard? You get what I'm saying? Like, I don't know, like in that case, like you guys had luck on your side as well, right?
Yeah.
That you guys had that sort of success early
Sure.
on. But it's like, I guess like my question is like, if I don't have that thought in mind, like I guess intrinsically as a person, but I just in general, like for other people, you get what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah,
are they
totally.
gonna have the drive to make sure that what they put out is good, you know, like that type of thing, you know? So like, what was your, like, besides the fact that you loved it, like what was your drive to, I guess, to put out good stuff, to make sure it was really good, and to play good shows, for example? Because you have to care, obviously.
Yeah, we did. Back then, we almost would play anything that was offered to. I mean, dude, we'd play 4 or 5 times a month over the span of between here and Miami. You know what I mean? So it wasn't always just Tampa. Bang, bang, bang. So back then, there was a little bit of, you know, let's just play to many people as we can, you know. But that was also, again, no internet, no YouTube, no Facebook Live. You know, now when a band plays 4 or 5 times a month, I'm like, dude,
That's too much.
You guys slow it down, man.
Yeah.
You're just
Burning yourself
you're
out.
burning you out, and you're watering it down, man. You know what I mean? So like now, Pohgoh, we play 3, 4, maybe 4 times a year.
Yeah.
You know, other than outside of Tampa.
Do you think that, let's say if you started in a band right now, how would you approach that?
I would play once a quarter.
Once a quarter.
But I'm also old.
You're not old, man.
I really like the writing process. I like recording, you know. But I think when you play like that, you can pick and choose the events, and they become better events than just, hey, let's play with so and so at the whatever. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Wasn't that cool? It was.
Yeah.
But our guitarist Matt had to take a night off of bartending and lose X amount of dollars so that we could make $70
Yeah.
collectively.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that's not about the money. I'm just giving you an example.
Yeah. It's,
You know what I mean?
It's tough. Like, we have one member in Miami, for example, right now going to school, and he's finishing that up, and then, you know, our bass player is always busy with work, and it's just like, you know, it's difficult because you have to make sacrifices, but I guess you kind of also learn like, well, like every time I'm up there, like this is where I should be.
Yeah,
you know, so
sure.
like this, I don't care if I'm making $0 or whatever
Yeah.
it is. It's just like I just want to play in front of people.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so I'm sure
I don't fault anybody for doing that.
Yeah.
As long as you realize that you're up there for you.
Yeah, exactly.
You
That's
know what
right.
I mean?
Yeah.
But these kids, I say kids because I'm old. These kids today that play and they're like, you know, man, nobody was into it and that show sucked. I'm like, well, A, you didn't have to play it.
Yeah.
And B, if you went in thinking you were going to destroy the place and leave with $500 in merch sold, that's your own problem.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You know
yeah.
what I mean?
I mean,
Again,
That's delusional.
You shouldn't have expected that.
That's delusional.
that I've learned that that's a way that a lot of people quit playing music too. But that kind of like separates the people that actually
Yeah.
just love doing it and the people that just are trying to,
Sure.
you know, like whatever, be famous.
But I've
or
also
whatever.
been fortunate in that, like, I've always been in bands with friends, and I've always been in bands with people that were already kind of connected in the scene, like kind of in the fabric of the scene. So that's not to say I didn't have to work hard. But I cut my teeth and paid my dues early. You
Yeah.
know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, you know, and that's like with Pohgoh now, it's like we very much can say yes or no to certain shows, and, you know, because we had that kind of built-in following and history behind us that we're still a new band to a lot of people, and we realize that. But
Yeah.
we also definitely have a history behind us that we can fall back on.
Yeah,
what I
definitely.
mean?
Yeah, I mean, there's I've mentioned your name to a lot of people actually, and they're like, "Oh yeah, I know them." I'm like, "That's cool, man. That's
Yeah, that's
awesome."
awesome. Yeah, it's
yeah,
great.
it's really cool. Our neighbors actually,
Sure.
one of them, he was like, "Oh yeah, I know Pohgoh. I remember them from back in the day because
Yeah.
he's from here as well."
Oh,
So,
cool.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. So after the band disbanded, then so what did you do like immediately afterwards? Like, what were your plans then?
Well, I quit the band.
Mm-hmm.
I let my girlfriend at the time, determine my fate. And I was like, I'm quitting the band.
What if you don't mind? I mean, you don't have to talk about it if you don't
Yeah.
want to. But what exactly happened there?
I don't know, man. You know, when you're young and you get into a crappy relationship, and
You
it's
look back
toxic,
and you're like, what the heck
you
was
know, and
that?
it's, you know, I don't have time for the band. My relationship's in dire whatever, or this and that, and so
Yeah.
both the relationship and the band ended at the same time, and it was just too much for me to handle, so I quit. But not too long after that, maybe a year, Matt and Susie and I reformed a new band called the Maccabees that we had for a few years.
That's cool.
And not to be confused with a band from England called the Maccabees. And we put out a couple EPs and did a tour with that band as well. Mm-hmm. And so we did that up until 2000, 2001. Susie and I got married in 2000. So we were doing the band. But then in 2001, I think, Susie will kill me. 2002 maybe, Susie was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis.
Oh, okay.
So that immediately just put the squash on, you know, because she couldn't play the guitar, her hands were fucking up, and, you know, so we dealt with that for many years.
Yeah, and I actually I'm not super versed on that exactly. If you
Yeah.
don't mind, maybe explaining a little bit. If you don't mind, I don't know if you want to have her on and talk about it.
Basically, what the disease is.
Yeah, like I don't know.
It's basically, you have basically like nerves that connect the brain all the way through, right? So now imagine that there is a scab, or a plaque as they call it, on those nerve lines, and it's just crusting those nerve lines up, and it's basically just cutting off signal.
Okay.
So that's why people with MS, they have slurred speech, or they can't walk, or their arms don't work, or
'Cause
they
the
have double
nerves are-
vision. Right. There's no cure for it. There's preventative measures, which Susie's done. She's been in what they would call a remission for quite a few years now, which is awesome. She's also been very fortunate to where it just affects her the waist down.
Okay.
Like, she can't walk, but she can play the guitar. Her voice hasn't been affected. You know, she's cognitive, because a lot of people with MS walk and look totally normal, and then they'll go to speak in their mind. They have like what they call like a fog brain.
Okay.
Or they're forgetful, or they're slurring their words and stuff like that. So she's been very fortunate in that, because MS is different on every person. It's not like having a cold where you go, okay, this is where the nasal congestion comes in. This is where it's different for everybody.
Yeah.
So that's basically what MS is, and it progressed very quickly. She went from the numb hands to walking with a cane, to walking with a walker, and now she gets around on a little zippy scooter. Mm-hmm. We've got a van with a ramp. She drives with her hands. Pretty cool.
Is that a genetic disease?
No, her mom does have it as well.
Okay.
But they're kind of considered an anomaly, I guess.
I guess is there still not that much like research on it? And stuff
Oh,
like
there's
that?
a ton.
There's a ton.
There's
okay.
a ton of research on it. But just it's like many other major diseases like Parkinson's or something. There's just no cure. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You know, nobody knows what causes it.
Yeah.
You know, there's speculation. Was it being exposed to chemicals, in the 80s, cleaning materials, or was it this, or is it living in Florida when you have the UV of this and that? Just a bunch of whatever.
That is the crazy thing about being a live human is like we're not perfect at all. You know what I'm saying? Like literally our genes, they can mutate at any time, and you can. That's what cancer is, for example. And it's like anyone can get it.
Yep.
It's an unfortunate thing, that's just part of life, unfortunately.
Yep.
But I'm glad to hear that she's working through that. That's awesome, man.
And she's been the big catalyst and push behind this whole thing with the band now. She's the one that's like, let's write new songs, let's make an album, let's do this.
Yeah, the positive out of that would be that she has a lot of material to work, to that can come from that.
Well, all the lyrics on that new album are
on Secret Club.
Yeah.
80%
are about her battle with MS.
Yeah.
So it's pretty. It's funny because it's this upbeat pop record, but if you look at the lyrics, it's some pretty brutal shit.
Yeah.
Well,
no, I could only imagine. Yeah, I couldn't imagine actually. Yeah, but that's intense. That's a great way of spinning that. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, that's awesome.
When our publicist was first pitching the album for people to review, one of the first responses we got back, I can't remember who it was. The guy was like, "Dude, this song rocks." And he's like, "And those are some of the most depressing lyrics I've ever heard in my life." Like he just couldn't believe the juxtaposition of just this upbeat pop song, and then it's this song about losing control of your legs and falling down, and me running down the hallway because I heard her fall and scream, and you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's our lives. That's what we deal with.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But at the same time, we're just rocking out.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
No, that's great. Like you could it's unfortunate this person ended up dying, but Joy Division was a lot like that too. Where just like super depressing lyrics, but the music was like awesome.
Yeah, I agree.
But so I saw that in '94 you started New Granada?
New Granada Records, yeah.
Okay, and what was the idea behind that?
Well, originally it's funny because I get listed as like the founder and this and that, but actually when it originally started, it was a collective. It was a co-op of 3 or 4 people that were like, "Hey, we want to pool together some money and we want to put out a record and start a label." And the Pohgoh's first 7-inch was New Granada 01. It was the first record. So originally I was just the band on the label. I wasn't like part of the label. Mm-hmm. But then the idea was being a co-op that anybody could use the name. So some friends of mine were in a band and they put out New Granada 2. And then Susie's band, who before Pohgoh, they were called Stitch, they put out New Granada 3. Well, then we realized all 3 of these releases over the course of 2 years are all people within our very small pool of friends.
Yeah.
So we got with the people that had started the collective and we were like, can we just roll with this name and just keep it and we'll run it? And they were like, yeah, because no one else was using the name. It was just us. You know what I mean? Our little small group of friends.
Yeah.
And we were like, we're the only ones doing this. This was supposed to be this thing that was going to spread like a spider web and bands were going to start being New Granada bands. And it didn't take off like that.
And you guys were the only ones utilizing it.
So
basically.
2 or 3 years into it, it was basically me.
Okay.
You know what I mean? And anything that we did or Pohgoh did or the Maccabees, it was all New Granada. And it wasn't until... And we would only put out like one thing a year because we weren't super active.
Uh-huh.
We would put out like a comp CD or something fun or another retroactive thing of a broken up band. But it wasn't until about 2006, 12 years later, that we were like, maybe we should put out something that we're not involved with.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so between 94 and 2006, there were 10 releases. Well, between 2006 and now, we're on our 67th release.
Wow.
So it just So there was a period about 7 or 8 years ago where we were putting out 5, 6, 7 things a year.
Wow.
And funding it all and just.
Yeah, that I guess that was like, what's the nitty gritty of running a label, for example? Like,
well, it was all just DIY, man. I mean, we would find bands, and you know, a lot of bands would submit stuff to us, and we would never. It was always what we wanted to put out, you know, because 10 years ago, shows were way different. The local scene was very supportive. You could go to an all local show at New World, and there'd be 200 people there, excited to hear a new band, and so we would see a lot of the cool new bands, and you know, we would just be like, dude, we want to put your CD out or whatever. Like, yeah, that sounds awesome.
That's cool.
You know,
what do you think has changed, like in terms of like people going out to shows?
Facebook, social media.
Really?
There's too many options.
Yeah.
You know, back in the day, it was like, dude, let's go to New World and see who's playing. Now it's like, oh, okay, let me open up my calendar. Oh, there's 20 things to do. I'm going to go to this art unveiling, this wine tasting, this poetry reading.
Saturated.
It's just saturated. Yeah. And also with music being online, you know, it's like everybody and their mother is, come see my band play, come see my band play. Whereas before it was just old school word of mouth. You'd be at New World or wherever and having a beer or a drink and look at the calendar and go, oh, dude, Candy Bars is playing. You know, Candy Bars was a huge local band 12 years ago, you know. And they'd bring out 200 people every show, you know. So it just, I don't know, it was just a different scene. It was a little different.
Well, I mean, do you think then, like, do you think it's a little harder now for a local band?
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, that's crazy.
You're not just dealing with other bands and venues, you're dealing with just other stuff.
Yeah.
You know? It's hard to compete, you know, it's local brewery's unveiling a new beer. Cool, that's an awesome event. But now you're going to go do that instead of see this band play. That's awesome.
Yeah,
you know?
exactly.
And I'm not saying you should go see the band versus trying a new beer. I'm just giving you an example.
Yeah, I mean, well, there's...
You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure.
Or whatever. Exactly. Oh, this restaurant's unveiling their new menu. I've been invited to the soft opening, you know? Cool, that's awesome.
Yeah.
You know? But that's social media for you. It's like those things still happened back then, but it was a little bit more tucked in, a little bit more... in the know of you just had to be there, you know.
Yeah.
Like it just depended on what kind of scene you're in.
That's right.
Into at the time.
So so I guess like I would imagine that your suggestion to kind of like, or rather the solution to that would be to go out and like make friends, network and stuff like that. Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. You could be the most badass band in Tampa, but if you're not going out, you forget it.
Yeah.
You're going to be self-booking your own shows and playing these cattle call shows I was talking about and playing the 10 o'clock slot with 5 other bands, trying to your damnedest to get your friends to come out. You know, dude, when you play, dog, hit me up on the next one, dude. All right. Sounds good. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because the thing is when you start to network with somebody and you play a show where everybody's friends, then everybody's friends are there.
Yeah.
So if each band brings 10 people, you got a 40-person show.
Yep.
Yeah,
and then those 40 people all get to know each other and they start to hang out and then, I saw you at that other show and this and that, and it just becomes this network.
That's how you build the scene.
That's how you build the scene.
So I have another question that I've been thinking or wondering about. How do you feel about sets, like for like a new band, one that's not necessarily, established or whatever? Do you find that people can be more into them if they play like a 30-minute as
30
opposed?
minutes max.
Okay,
depends on the show.
Yes.
Okay. There's always appropriate levels. Mm-hmm. So for instance, and I hate to keep bringing up New World, but that's just my barometer of show perfection. And I did shows there for years. Mm-hmm. So we would do 3-band bills. You do like a 8 o'clock door, 9, 10, 11. Mm-hmm. There we would tell a band, yeah, you could do 40 minutes, but if you're in a tight, like for instance, like the Bends, have you ever been to the Bends in St. Pete? Mm-hmm. Okay, dude, I couldn't imagine doing a 40-minute set in there. It's so packed.
Yeah.
And it's so tiny.
Yeah.
So like we played there 2 weeks ago, and it was like 29 minutes.
Yeah.
Boom, boom, boom.
Yeah.
We were out. Yeah, it's one of those things, and I hear people's other side of their logic, like, well, dude, if people are really digging you
don't want to get off.
We should just keep playing.
Yeah.
Like, no, dude, leave them wanting more.
Yeah.
And also be courteous to the other bands.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I've set up shows before where, a band has played shorter than what I told them to play, like 25 minutes, and then the next band, dude, since they ended early, can we play a little? Like, no. There's just going to be longer between bands. You're going to start it and end at the same time I told you.
Yeah, well, the thing is like, even for myself, I love to go watch bands. I really do, but I do find like after 30 minutes, like 35 most, I'm just like, I'm out. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's just hard. It's hard to listen to something new, even if I like it. Honestly, even if I like it, 30 minutes in, I'm like, all right, I'm good. You know, I got it.
Yeah.
You know, so I wondered what your
in most bands, if you're writing 3 to 5 minute songs, I mean, dude, that's a good 7 to 9 song set.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like if you can't play 6, 7 songs and feel good about it, then that's a problem.
I honestly, dude, that's
a good point.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's enough songs for somebody to go, hey, I'm into this.
Exactly.
Or it's enough songs
Or
to go,
not.
I'm not into that.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
For
I mean, I'm not, I won't name names, but I've definitely played with bands that they play over 40 minutes, and it's just like, you can just tell, you can see it in the crowd, man.
Yeah, people start moving, they start leaving the room.
Especially if you're doing original music. I mean, if I get it, there's scenarios. If you've been hired to play that long, that's different.
Do it.
Exactly.
Yeah, for sure.
You know, if you're covers or you're sprinkling in covers, you're a working band, I get it. But if you're an original band trying to be a part of the original music scene, do 30 minutes all day long.
Yeah.
You know what's funny is that I find that some venues, and again, I won't name names, but there's some venues that still kind of like push you to play longer sets.
Yeah, because they want people to stick around and buy more beer.
Yeah, but even then, though, I feel like people just end up leaving, though. You know what I'm saying?
Maybe
That's
not.
because venues don't always know better.
Yeah, that's what but that's the honest truth. Like, I don't want to step on any toes per
I hear you.
se, but it's just like, that's what, like, if, you know, I've done this for a little bit now, and it's like, this is what I've seen. It's like, I just feel like people would be more engaged if it were short. If it were like 3 bands, I think 3 bands is perfect.
Yeah.
You know?
I think too, though, like if the rooms are separate, people aren't going to leave the venue. They're just going to go buy more drinks.
That's
so
right.
it doesn't really affect the venue.
Right.
They're just like, I just want music in the background while people are here. So they don't care if you play longer. But as far as having people engaged to your set, I think 30 minutes is fine. I think what happened, like, with us, we were like, oh, but we have, like, a lot of songs that sound different and we want to play all of them. It's like, we'll just pick those songs. Like, make it so that that's what your set does. I feel like that's what a lot of bands bump into. It's like, people aren't getting the full thing. We'll make a set that gets people the full,
There used to be a local band around called Red Room Cinema. We actually put out their CD on New Granada. They were an instrumental band, like Explosions in the Sky, Red Sparrows, that kind of thing. Well, their songs were all like 17 minutes long.
Whoa.
So they'd do shows for me, and they'd go, all right, well, is this a 30-minute set or a 40-minute set? And depending on which one it was always this like mathematical equation of what songs they were going to play. Because it was like, okay, we can play that one and that one.
Yeah.
Or we can play this one long thing and play short. Like, this song's 21 minutes long. Let's just play that, and that'll be the set.
Yeah.
Or whatever.
That's crazy.
Yeah, so that was always fun with them because they never really had a set because it always depended on how long.
Well, and also, like, I would imagine, like, there's bands that I've heard that do that, and, like, the song itself actually doesn't sound like it's the same song a lot.
Right,
like, like it's almost like watching a film.
Yeah.
The words right out of my mouth.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So another question that I thought might be interesting was what would be something that the layman person that wouldn't have any experience with the label, like, what would you tell them? Well, I guess what could you say that is not expected in running a label? Like so I guess, yeah. Like, I know it's a weird question.
He's like,
but like what? Like I don't know. When I learn about stuff like this, like, I always like hearing, like, I guess, like the detailed stuff about it. You know what I'm saying?
Just ask it again.
So for someone like myself who's never done this before, like a label, for example, like, what could you tell me that you think I wouldn't expect? Like something about running a label, basically.
You're going to lose a shit ton of money.
Okay, there you go.
An assload of money, dude. Now, we were fortunate in that every release we've ever done, we've raised the money. And what I mean by that is, like, so I was a promoter for many, many years. I never once ever took a penny. So there were periods of my life years ago where I was doing 7-8 shows a month. Wow. And let's say I was taking 10% or whatever, you know, $100 here. I would put that back into the label. So after 6 months, we'd have $3,000-$4,000, and then we would put out a couple records. And then, but we knew going into it, we weren't going to make that money back because you'd press, 1,000 CDs or 500 CDs, knowing you're only going to sell maybe a couple hundred of them.
Yeah.
So we always looked at the money as almost like a grant, like at school.
Yep.
And the bands would always say, "Oh, I feel bad you're losing money." It's like, well, it's not our money to lose. Think of it as a grant. You've got this grant to go to school. Now, whether you've finished the classes or not is up to you.
Yeah.
So that's how we always looked at the label. So out of the 67 releases, I think I said we've only had 4 or 5 that have actually passed the break-even point of where we made all of our money back. So that's the biggest, like, whoa.
Yeah,
you know, and that's why over the years when a lot of bands were like, hey, we want to put your record out, like, nah, dude, I've seen you play. You play to 5 people. We're not going to sell 5 records. I need to sell at least 50 to 100 records to make it worth my while. Yeah. Now, that's not something a band wants to hear, but it's true.
The truth.
Yeah,
it's the truth. It's like, man, I've been to 10 of your shows. You've never played to more than 5 people.
Yeah.
I'm not putting your record out. There's no way.
Yeah.
Yeah,
No,
mathematically, there's just no.
No, I would just be throwing $3,000 into the garbage can.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's the other thing too, is like people have to understand, like it is a business. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? It's like,
and we did, and Susie likes to remind me, we did have 1 or 2 releases where the bands had big plans. We're gonna tour. It's all booked. We've got distribution for the record. We dump all this money, and then none of those things happened. Oof. And then I've got a closet full of records that I spent $3,500 on. Literally sold none of them. That happened once or twice.
That's rough.
Yeah.
That's the other thing too, is like, is there like, I guess you don't have to say that. I was gonna ask you like contracts and stuff like that, but yeah, I guess like you don't really know. Yeah, I mean something abruptly can happen, and then you kind of.
And we've never done a contract. It's always been a verbal, just hey, this is what's gonna happen.
That's cool, man. That's really cool. It's like I'm passionate about this stuff, so that's awesome, man. So Microgroove. I saw that you got that started in 2011. Yeah. And so I guess what was the idea behind that? You just wanted to own a record store?
Yeah. So I had done the whole office thing, management and all that for a decade, and the company got bought out. Mm-hmm. So I had a really great severance package at the time. It was awesome. So most people, when they lose their job, it's like a detrimental time in their lives. And what are we going to do? Blah, blah, blah. Yeah. Well, my wife and I, we were just really smart with our money, and we paid off our cars, and we did all this other stuff. And so once we were done with my severance package over the 6 months, she's like, if you don't want to, you don't have to go back to work full time. So I went and worked part-time for 4 years at Vinyl Fever, which was a very well-known Tampa record store for 30-something years. So I had worked in record stores when I was younger in the 80s through the 90s, and so it was really fun. And then when Vinyl Fever closed, I was like, well, shit, I don't know what I'm going to do now, man. I don't want to go back to the office. I don't want to do that crap. And so about 6 months later, man, I just said, fuck it, man. I'm just going to open my own little shop. And I'd heard through a buddy of mine that another acquaintance of mine had the same idea. So I called him. I said, hey, man, I hear you got this idea of opening a record store. He's like, yeah. I said, well, what's your idea? And he had his ideas, and I had mine. And because I wasn't super adamant on making it happen 100%, I was like, look, I'll give you 3 months to find funding and backing. And if you can't, I'm gonna move forward with opening my shop. So 3 months came, and he called me. He's like, dude, I can't do it. And then I was like, well, why don't we just do it together? So originally Microgroove we were two people, but he left after 8 months. Oh. He was just like, oh, dude, this isn't what I thought it was going to be.
Really?
Yeah.
Why? What was it exactly?
Just does not make enough money for 2 people. It doesn't make enough money for 1 person.
Yeah.
My wife has a good job. She loves me very much. So, contrary to popular belief, this vinyl boom is nobody's getting rich off of that shit, dude. Except Amazon.
That's hilarious, man.
So, that's how that started, man. I was just like, I wanted to do it. A lot of these businesses in Seminole Heights hadn't quite opened up yet. And so, we were kind of early in the whole Seminole Heights business boom. You're probably like one of the first people. Well, I wouldn't say the first, but early.
Okay.
You had the Independent, you had Cappy's Pizza. Okay. There was other things, Sherry's Yesterdays, stuff like that.
Okay.
So you're seeing a lot more foot traffic recently, or
not necessarily for me, but for Seminole Heights, yeah, man. A lot of restaurants, a lot of breweries. We got apartment complexes going in now.
I saw that on the corner of Florida there.
Yeah, and there's another one on the other side of Hillsborough near the refinery. You
find it hilarious that is that a condo or apartment complex there?
I don't know.
But isn't it funny that that's literally right across from the Dutch Motel?
I know.
Right there. It's like,
I know.
Like a complete opposite.
Yes, I know.
You could be here, you could be there.
Shit, that's so funny.
When we first moved in the neighborhood in like 2002, we used to get these robocalls from the sheriff's office like once a month and say, this is the Hillsborough County. There is a sexual predator residing at the Dutch Motel.
Really?
Oh yeah, they would always report them. So the Dutch, for some reason, was like this haven for like people getting out of jail, or like a drug addict or whatever. They'd say whatever the crime was.
Yeah.
Very bizarre.
That is weird.
But we don't get them anymore.
Oh, okay.
But for the first few years we lived here, it was like once a month.
That's so weird. Wow.
So it always made me wonder if like the Dutch was like this known kind of like safe haven for
When you get out, go
like
to Dutch.
like a halfway house.
Yeah.
Almost, you know what I mean?
To me, it looks like a place where people sell drugs. To be honest,
You're probably correct in that assumption.
It looks like it. Like
That's probably not far out from the truth.
Yeah.
So.
like whatever. But it's crazy that it's like literally right there. Like that's.
But yeah, I mean, to go back to the whole like business part of it, I mean, that I wasn't joking. Like when you see the stuff on the news about how vinyl's back, it's up whatever percent and this and that, they are 100% referring to Amazon, not record stores. They're talking about new vinyl, not used records, which is what most stores sell.
Yeah.
Because how are they going to monitor used records? You know what I mean? So, me as a store, I have not really seen this quote unquote vinyl boom that they're talking about. Dude, I did $20 today at the shop. The door opened twice. Fuck. Doesn't mean I'm going out of business.
Yeah.
But it's just not what people think it is.
I didn't know that myself. Yeah. That's crazy.
Yeah. It's not what people think it is. There's plenty of days where the door isn't open at all.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Wow.
And everybody thinks they're sitting on a gold mine. They're bringing all these crappy records. What? You don't want these?
Like, no, I don't.
I was watching Pawn Stars, man. He said this record's worth $100. Yeah, you're watching Pawn Stars, dude.
I was gonna ask that too. Do you get like a lot? Do you get like, I guess, people from out of Tampa or out of the country that come in and just like tourists?
Sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sometimes there's people that are like on record buying trips, and then there's, because we're kind of close to the airport, so I get a lot of people like they got a couple hours to kill before their flight, and they come in there, which is cool.
That is cool.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, that is cool, man. When did you start booking bands there?
Just a few years ago.
Really?
It was a relatively new thing. I used to just do it on Record Store Day and our anniversary. And then I was doing it for a little while, and then I just recently stopped doing it again. I like having my private time.
Yeah.
I'll be honest with you. It's really nice, actually, to not... And I've had a lot of bands like, hey, we want to play. And I'm like, I'm not really doing shows right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Just cause.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's nice... I'll be honest with you, like, because like I was saying earlier, like, there's times where, like, you book a band, and sometimes you forget, and I start closing up, and I go, shit, there's a show tonight. That means another 4 hours here, you know, whether the show's good or not. Sometimes you're just ready to go home.
Yeah, man.
So I'll be honest with you, it's really stress-free to not have to worry about that at all.
Yeah, no, for sure. If you don't mind talking about this, because we're in a relationship ourselves and we play in
Congratulations.
It's great.
I was gonna ask you, because there's this big misconception that, like, if you play in the band that you're, you know, in the partner, like, you have a... I'm sorry.
Wow, when you play in a band with your partner. There's this misconception that that it's like a terrible idea.
No.
Well, that's because of the Beatles, though.
Really?
But Yoko wasn't in the band.
Yeah, she wasn't.
Oh,
in
that's
the
true.
band.
That's true. But she ruined it. So.
But yeah, I always hear that, like, or I've heard that in the past. They're just like, oh, that's probably not
it
a
all
good idea.
depends. I mean, you know, Susie and I have been in a band together. I mean, when Pohgoh was around before, originally, we weren't together.
Yeah, you weren't together. Yeah.
But during the second band, the Maccabees, we were, and we even got married during that time period.
That's so cool, man.
So, like, Susie has this thing, like, we still practice every Monday night.
Okay.
Whether we have a show or not.
Yeah.
It's just fun.
Like, just you two, you're
No,
saying?
the four of us.
The four. Okay,
yeah, we
gotcha.
get together every Monday and practice. And she has this thing where she says, when you walk in the door of the practice room, we're bandmates. We're not husband and wife. And what she means by that is because sometimes, you know, you get those creative juices going, or, you know, if I say, I don't know about that song, or I don't know about that part, you know what I mean? Like, she's not going to get upset and go, you know,
yeah, when
Keith, my husband, is telling me I wrote a terrible song.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean? Which she's never written a terrible song for the record.
That's good.
But there's parts that I like better than others.
Yeah,
you know
for
what I
sure.
mean?
For sure, yeah.
So, but that's kind of our dynamic there. You know what I mean? Like in on tour and stuff like that. And yeah, we squabble and get into our, you know, Brian and Matt have gotten used to it.
Yeah.
You know, they know it comes with the territory.
Yeah, it's funny because like I feel like people would never know that we're together, you
Sure.
know, like if they see us at a show or something like that. And I feel like for us, like I'm sure it may have happened with you as well, but like it was like almost instinctual. Like once we're with the band, like we're band members
sure.
right now. You know, we're not like doing like lovey-dovey stuff
Sure.
or whatever. It's just, to me personally, like I'm uncomfortable with that anyway.
Yeah, sure. I hear you.
But so on tour, then like how is that difficult at all to navigate? No? Okay.
Not at all.
That's cool.
Like I said, you get into the little squabble here and there, or you argue over where you want to eat.
Yeah.
But you do that anyway.
Yeah, exactly.
It just happens to be in a van with 3 other people.
Yeah, That's funny.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Honestly, like personally, I see it as to me it's a blessing, right? Because it's like not only am I doing what I want, but I'm also with the person that I want to be,
That's
and
exactly right.
we
Yeah.
both have the same goal in life.
Yeah.
And it's like it's a beautiful thing. It's
Yeah.
like you're both doing this, you know, like
Sure.
your passion. It's I don't
Well,
know.
and it's funny you say that because like if this was any other band I was in that Susie wasn't in, I don't think I'd be enjoying it as much.
Yeah.
Or I don't think I'd be accepting a lot of these offers.
Yeah.
Because we feel like, not that we're owed anything, but we've been dealt a pretty shitty card, like with her health and her MS and stuff like that. So we kind of feel like these doors, whatever you believe in, whether you believe in God or fate or karma or serendipity or whatever, these doors that have opened, we kind of feel like fuck yeah, these doors are open. That's
Exactly.
awesome. You know, not that we deserve them, but we take that as like, dude, this is exciting. This is cool. You know what I mean? I kind of lost track of the point I was going to make.
I get what you're saying, though.
But you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, if she wasn't with me and I was in another band and these same things were happening, I probably would combat it a little bit. Like, I don't want to do that tour.
Yeah.
I don't want to drive to Orlando for that show. But the fact that we're doing it together and making music together, you know?
No, it's beautiful.
And very selfishly / coming across sort of egotistic, it's nice to be in a band that people enjoy and respect. You know what I mean? And that's it sounds totally shitty on the surface, and I'll claim that.
No, but that's
it's fun. You know what I mean? Like it's fun, kind of having paid our dues already, and knowing that like we're playing these shows to have fun, but. You know, we know, and not everybody likes us, but with the shows we play, people tend to be into what we're doing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's rewarding, you know, so it's rewarding as a couple to experience that together. And, you know, and we still, even with the guys, I mean, we still are like, dude, this is awesome, you know, whatever. But it's just particularly special when with your spouse or significant other.
Yeah,
or
no, it's that's a bit like when, you know, it's the same thing with us. It's like whenever we've played, like we played a show last night at Hooch and Hive, and you know, it was just us two, and it's like, I know, it's such a nice feeling. Like when you're done, you're just like, man, we fucking just did that. Like it's cool, man.
Yep.
It's like it's very unique. I feel like I don't really know I don't know how many people are in relationships and bands together or whatever. But
and it doesn't always work out.
that's true.
No, it
You know,
doesn't.
it
Yeah.
does not always work out.
If you can't navigate it properly, like it could easily, like where you're bringing that relationship to the band, and it's like you never want to do that.
Well, and also too, like if you're in a band and there's problems and it starts to hurt the relationship, that probably means there was deep-seated problems in the relationship anyway.
Anyways, yeah.
And the band just brought it out.
That's
Yeah.
true. Yeah. That's another thing that like about a band too is being on tour and stuff like that. Like I guess you really like, I guess learn like that you can be with another like let's say like for example not me and her but like the other guys for example, that we can be in like a tight space for like a long period of time. Like we just did that recently for me, and it was like the first time experience, and it's like, okay, I can do this. You know, like the traveling is difficult, I will be honest. Like like being in a vehicle for long periods of time, like it's rough. I mean, people might not think it is, but it's hard. But you know, ultimately, like if you're around people that you love, or you know that you at least enjoy creating with, like it actually makes it kind of it's just fun. You know what I'm saying?
And I said this earlier too, like I've always been fortunate. I've always been in bands with people I'm friends with anyway. So like Matt, our guitarist, like dude, I've known him for 25 years. Brian, our bass player, he's not our new bass player, but he joined when Pohgoh reformed.
Okay.
But dude, I've known Brian since I first started going to shows, and he's younger than me. So like I've known Brian for almost 30 years.
Wow.
So that's another thing too, is like we're all cut from the same cloth. We've all got the same mindset. We all know exactly what's going to happen. You know, when as far as the intention or, you know, the trajectory of I'm not speaking figuratively. I mean literally. Like the van is going that way, and we're getting to this venue, and this is what the show's going to be like. Yeah. Like we're all on the same page. You know what I mean?
Yeah. That's awesome. So this recent tour that you went on with Jawbreaker,
Yes.
How was that? That must have been awesome, huh?
It was a dream, dude.
Yeah.
It
Can you talk
was-
about it?
Yeah,
Talk a
I
little bit
can
about
tell you about it. It was, I mean, Jawbreaker, to anybody that doesn't know, were originally around from like 88, 89 to mid-90s, 96. Put out 4 albums. They never were super huge. They were an underground band. I guess you would call them a punk band.
Okay.
They were originally from New York, but then they're more associated with San Francisco. They were kind of in that same swirly space as your Green Days and stuff like that. Even though it's not as fun, it's a little bit more aggressive, and the lyrics are really awesome and very smart. Not that Green Day is not smart. But they toured, and they used to come to Tampa and Gainesville, and we'd see them play, and their albums were just highly influential even then. But they were only playing to 200-300 people, so they were one of these bands that in the 90s, when a lot of DIY and punk bands were signing to majors, there was this huge backlash of like, you sold out, you signed to a major, you're selling out your punk scene, you just lost your punk cred. And so they were very adamant, like, we will never do this, we will never do this. Well, they signed to a major label and put out what to me is arguably their greatest album of all time. But when it came out, it was very polarizing.
Okay.
Because it was major label production, he sang a little different, but it still sounds like Jawbreaker. So the album basically just ruined the band. Like, that was the end of it. They toured that one album, and then they broke up.
Oh, wow.
And people either loved it or they hated it. I mean, despised it. There's nobody the album's called Dear You, and there's no one that says, oh, Dear You's an okay album. They either fucking love it like I do, or they're like, that's the worst piece of shit of all time.
Wow.
Well, what happened posthumously is with what they call second wave emo, these bands from the 90s like your Promise Ring and Braid and Mineral and stuff, that's kind of what we were involved with. They re-embraced Jawbreaker, and so Jawbreaker's legacy and influence just exploded. So they became this highly influential legacy band that no one ever expected to reunite, ever. And they finally did a couple years ago at Riot Fest. And so people were like, dude, is there going to be a tour? Are there going to be more shows? And so now they start playing shows. And so up until this last month, their shows were just one-offs. So this was their first official tour back as a band in 20 years. So, and we had just gotten on their radar last year, just old school. There's no management, nobody working for us. The singer saw our video on Facebook, and he came to see us in New York, and when we were on tour in September, I was like, yeah, you guys were awesome.
That's fucking awesome.
Yeah, and there was some common friends. It wasn't like total strangers. There was common, may use a made-up word, scenality, because of the scene.
Uh-huh.
But, we had common people that we knew. But, it wasn't like we had a management or this was something we were working for. And they just kept in touch with us, and we're like, dude, we're loving Pohgoh, man. We're loving this album. We love what you're all about. We love your story. We're like, oh, that's awesome. And to us, that was it.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah, you're like, this is all I
cool, man. The guys from
here.
Jawbreaker are totally into my band.
That's so cool, man.
Fast forward to January of this year, and we get a call from the drummer. It says, hey, we're going out for 7 days. We want you to open the tour.
That's awesome.
Like, okay.
Yeah.
Can you let me know tomorrow morning? Like, all right, I will talk to everybody tonight.
That's so cool,
So
man.
we had to put our lives on hold.
Yeah.
And it was awesome.
It's like a
man.
dream come true.
It was, because we were touring, like I said, even when they would tour back in the day, they were playing to 100, 200, 300, 400 people, maybe 500. But this tour, the rooms were huge, man. 1,800, 2,000. I mean, so even to them, it was just like, it was kind of like we were all into, it was us, a band from Baltimore called War on Women, who were awesome. Very, very social conscious, political hardcore band. And then Jawbreaker. But we were all in the same boat that we were like experiencing it all together at that level. Like,
Yeah.
dude, this venue is insane, or this is crazy. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I've toured a lot, and we had just done our tour in September, and we had just done some dates in January with this band Mineral. But this was just like next level.
Yeah,
The first show was House of Blues, Boston. You pull up, 4 guys
Some
come out and unload your van.
acts have
Like,
been there.
you know what I mean? Like, you're not doing anything.
Yeah.
The lunch is served upstairs. Dinner's 5 to 8.
Was it weird?
Cool. No. It was awesome.
You're just soaking it all in.
Yeah, man, it was great. It was great. And also, I mean, the obvious, seeing Jawbreaker, who were major fans. Like, all four of us were major Jawbreaker fans, and all four of us had seen Jawbreaker before, back in the day.
Yeah.
So it wasn't just, wow, this is a great opportunity. It was, dude, this is Jawbreaker.
Genuinely, like, holy.
Like, you asked me very early in this interview about me learning to play the drums and what I would listen to. Like, Adam Fowler of Jawbreaker is probably my number one. No, he is my number one influence.
Wow.
So I was playing along to those early Jawbreaker records, and that's and it's so funny. Like, even several times on this tour, I had a couple friends of mine who were in those cities. Like, oh man, you and Adam got a similar playing style.
Like, yeah, it makes sense.
Like, dude, that's awesome, man. You know what I mean? And so I got to talk to him about that.
Did you tell him about that?
Oh, yeah.
What did he?
He couldn't believe it. He's like, why me? I'm terrible, man. Of course. But our stories were so similar. He's like, dude, I don't know how to tune my drums. I can't do this. Why do you like me as a drummer? It was very much like my story.
Wow.
You know what I mean? So, but yeah, I mean, the shows were cool. I mean, we were the opener, so we weren't playing to 1,800 people, but we were playing to half that or quarter of that
exactly.
sometimes.
Still a lot, yeah.
You know, and there were people there that knew who we were, and there's people that would say, oh, I never thought I'd get a chance to see you from back in the day, and this is great. And, you know, obviously we made a lot of new fans as well and stuff like that. But we didn't look at it as some, like, career furthering move. We're like, that was cool.
Yeah, it was like, this is a dope opportunity to, like, live out like a dream of ours. Yeah. That's so cool,
The
man.
biggest takeaway, because there have so many people and friends and family have been like, you know, what's the biggest observation? And it sounds kind of silly, but my biggest takeaway from it was having a schedule. Like, we knew every night, that cat's awesome, by the way. We knew every night where we had to be, at what time this was happening, when our set was, when we had to be, you know what I mean? So there was none of this like, well, the promoter said to be at the club at 8, you get there and the bar's closed and you're waiting, well, he's not answering his phone and you're waiting in your van for a couple, you know what I mean? Like, there was none of that. It was like everything was just ran like a top.
Yeah, just like super organized, super professional.
And it was really cool experience. Even the cliche things like having your own private green room every night, and most nights we were fed, you know, or given what they call a buyout, which is a meal. How many people in your party? Oh, there's 5 of us. Okay, here's go buy some dinner. You know, that kind of thing. Wow. Yeah. Stuff like that. We're just like, wow, this is really fun. You know, this is a nice experience.
That's so cool.
You know, to be, I wouldn't say pampered, but taken care of. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But even the Jawbreaker guys were like, this is awesome. Because they never toured like that back in the day. You know? Oh, I take that back. They did one prior to their signing. The fan division started because they did like a short 8-run run with Nirvana back in the day.
Really?
Yeah, and people were like, what? Jawbreaker's playing that? They're selling out. They're going to sign to a major. And it was this big drama. You know what I mean?
Damn.
Which, dude, to me it wasn't. I thought it was awesome.
Yeah, of course.
That sounds awesome.
Yeah, good for them, man. And they put out a great record.
That's
I still
so
love
crazy.
it to this day.
So that first show, were you like crazy nervous? No? Really?
Nah, man, no. Well, because we're a well-rehearsed band, and we've been playing together for years, and
More excited than I would imagine.
very excited. Yeah,
Yeah.
man. I wasn't nervous at all, man.
That's so cool.
Yeah. So that first show in Boston, man, it was packed, like right out of the get-go. Just people right up on that front bar, and just the on-stage sound at these venues, like the side fill, which is your monitor mix. Dude, sound like the record playing, man. It just sounds so
Really?
beautiful. Yeah, just awesome.
I'm sure there was a lot of smiles while you guys were playing. Just
yeah.
laughing. Yeah.
Yeah.
I could
Like,
just,
dude, this sounds amazing.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun, and it was cool to play first too. Just kind of get it over with, and then just go
Enjoy the
relax,
show.
enjoy the show.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
So we'd
man.
watch from side stage, and I'll show you a few pictures when we're done.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
You know what I
That'd be
mean?
awesome. That's so cool.
Yeah.
That would be freaking amazing.
So, I guess So, since you're in the music industry,
Sure.
a question that I had was, what do you think about the music industry today, and how do you foresee it? Like, I guess, yeah, how do you foresee it changing in the future?
Well, I can only. I don't know. I mean, it's such a broad question, so I
Yeah.
can only speak to it from like a small DIY thing. You know, I'd love to see more DIY labels come in and pick up bands and get known. See, we used to follow labels back in the day. You know, you'd be at the record store and go, oh, what's this band? Oh, cool. They're on Merge. I follow Merge Records. They got to be good. And you'd buy it. And I don't think people do that anymore, especially because of Spotify. It doesn't tell you what label stuff's on.
No,
No.
it doesn't.
You have no idea who this band's affiliated
Yeah.
with. You know? So I'd like to see that kind of come back to where people start recognizing or label recognition or association.
Yeah.
You know? As far as the bigger picture, major labels, dude, I couldn't tell you.
Yeah.
No clue.
Well,
Good luck to them.
Yeah. I guess like that's the thing too, is like, for me, well, not for me, because I wouldn't know anything, but I would just think that maybe for like the layman, like they would just hear label and associate that with a negative connotation, just because of like maybe like horror stories that they've heard. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong.
I'm sure that happens too.
Yeah.
But if you run a cool label with cool bands, then
there's no reason.
why would you have horror
Sailing.
stories?
Yeah.
You
So,
know?
if someone wanted to start one, like what exactly does that take?
Honestly, man, at the base, honestly, it's so simple.
Mm-hmm.
It's just creating a name and putting it on the back of your CD or your record or whatever, and just saying that's our label. And if some people go, oh, that's just them.
Yeah.
It's not really a label.
Yeah.
Well, so what? You know what I mean? And then maybe you put out your second release on that label, or a friend wants to use the name, or you know what I mean? And you just go from there.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But as far as like distribution and getting the records outside of Tampa, that's a whole other ballgame.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's part of the reason why the label slowed down a lot for us, is we used to have national distribution. And in 2016, the distributor filed bankruptcy and kept all of our product, thousands of dollars of back pay. So for the last 3 years, we haven't had distribution. So that's why we've been slowing down and only putting out like one. So we had no income coming in. And then also, it wasn't fair to a band to, hey, I'm going to put your record out and then only sell it in Tampa.
Yeah.
You know? So we've only done like one release a year. Like last year, we put out in 2017, we put out the album by D Alps, local band.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And they're a good band, and they've got a little bit of following, and they got a great reputation. So we've been able to actually move quite a few copies. Plus, they tour regionally, and they play out of state or out of the city a good bit. So there's a little bit of visibility. But the name New Granada doesn't hold as much weight as it used to. There was a period maybe 10 years ago where, dude, if you were a New Granada band, it's like, oh, dude, this band's going to be good. You know what I mean? Not to toot our own horn.
No, I get what you're saying. I that would be really cool if that kind of, like we were saying too. Yeah, if that came back.
I'd
you know
love
what
it.
I'm saying?
You know? I just don't know how it could happen.
I don't know
And
either.
there are people still doing it, you know? Like, I don't know if it's still active anymore, but there was a label in St. Pete or a collective called like Blind Not Deaf or something like that, and they were doing some kind of noise type stuff in St. Pete. That was kind of cool.
I think I've heard them. Yeah.
You know, I don't know if they're still active or not. But yeah, no, there's still people doing it on a DIY level like that.
Interesting. I guess I don't want to hold you up too long.
Dude, yeah,
here.
I could talk all night long.
So what would you consider a success in business or music and like a career?
Dude, that's so...
Yeah. But what like to you? What do you for yourself consider
Honestly,
a success?
man, without sounding so lame, I'll tell you a personal story. So, like, I told you I used to work in an office, and at the time, my band had put out a CD. And I had resisted for years even telling anybody I was in a band. And then they found out, and it was just, we want to buy your CD. And I remember bringing a stack of CDs to work and going around, $5. And somebody picks it up, they give me the $5, and they go, wow, man, I hope this is a springboard to success. I said, well, what do you mean? Oh, I hope good things happen to you and your band. And I said,
This is it.
This is
it right
success.
here,
You
yeah.
just gave me $5. You just bought my CD. That's it. And they could not wrap their head around that. To them, they were thinking, you know, being on TV and touring the world and do that. And I was like, no, you've bought my CD. It's in your hands. You're going to listen to it. That's the success.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm saying. It's kind of a lame answer.
It's not though.
It just depends on what your level. It's kind of like what we were talking about earlier about touring. What are your expectations? If your expectations are to have fun, you're gonna have a great time.
Yeah.
So if your level of success is going to the studio and recording some songs, and then people hearing those songs, whether it's digitally or on CD, that's the success.
Yeah.
Now, granted, if things go beyond that, you become popular band or a band in demand, you start making money.
It's all plus.
That's like the cherry on top, basically.
It's cherry after cherry after cherry.
Well, the reason why I asked that is
mean?
because I had a feeling you were going to say that, and it's just like I feel like people need to hear that.
Yeah.
I really do, and
Yeah.
not a band, because if a band has the intention of being famous, they probably shouldn't be playing music, but more for like people that have them. Because I'm telling you, there is a misconception that success in music means that you're a millionaire or whatever. You know what I'm
Or
saying?
that's the Beatle. Like
And-
you're supposed to reach that.
Yeah,
level
and that's
of
a
the Beatles.
relatively, and this is going to be the old man in me, and I hate to bring up millennials, and I'm sorry, I apologize, but there is that kind of what I've always jokingly referred to as Oprah-isms, meaning like Oprah, she used to always tell people on her TV show, like, if you dream it, it'll happen.
Yeah.
You know, The Secret, her big thing. Put it out in the universe, and it'll manifest and whatever. And that's just not reality.
Yeah.
And so I've noticed with bands in the last 5 or 10 years, primarily young bands, that they form a band, and without even playing their first show, they've shot a video, and they've got a manager, and they've got T-shirts and stickers and this and that. And I'm like, dude, go play 10 shows for 6 months first. Yeah. Go see if people even like what you're doing, you know, or they got a website already, and they've got, you know, and it's like, we got to get out there. No, man, like, who's telling you that? It's almost like they're just mimicking on a very small level what a major band would do.
Yeah.
They're just mimicking, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I get that for sure.
We got to get a booker or management and da-da. It's like, nah, dude, no.
No, like what happened to like getting sweaty in a garage and just playing.
Yeah, and if people, you play 3 or 4 shows and people go, dude, you guys got anything out? Oh, cool. All right, that means people are starting to be into it.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean rush to the studio and record something.
Yep.
Yeah.
But that means people are starting to take a little notice. You're perking up some ears, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's cool. You
And
know?
I think it lets bands down when you have all that set up and then it doesn't move because you just started, and then they're like, oh, you know, we suck or whatever. And it's like, no, just take your time.
Take
like,
your time.
Work
And I
on
tease
stuff.
bands. I have good friends that are in bands that have stickers before they even play their first show, and I always tease them. Like one of them gave me a sticker of their band once, and I said, what am I supposed to do with this? He's like, oh, I don't know, put it on your cash register, put it on your car. And I said, I think I'm going to wait to hear the band first before I stick it anywhere. Just kidding around.
Yeah.
Not really.
Yeah.
And they are a good band. But
funny. It's true, though.
It's true, though. I like teasing them, you know what I mean? But it's very interesting how that's the new norm.
Mm-hmm.
You know, bands, like, it's just immediately they're trying to do all this stuff instead of just doing it themselves.
Yeah.
And I hate to keep coming back to the whole DIY thing. But it's like, dude, you'll be so much more satisfied by accomplishing things on your own. You know?
Yeah, it's. I mean, and I hate to keep going back to us and use this as an example, but it's like, you know, early on we tried to do like recording studios and stuff like that, and I just realized like, man, like really all I want to do is I want to make the music that I want and do it the way that I want it, and even if the end product doesn't sound you know, as good as like a professional studio, I still like I love doing it.
Yeah.
And I'm still doing it now, like,
and it's good to have recordings for, say, like booking. Like people would message me, hey, my band wants to play. Well, what do you sound like? And they'd start to describe it. Like, well, do you have even have a practice tape? Something I can hear? I'm not
for
gonna...
reference. Yeah.
So I get that. You know what I mean? But as far as just coming out of the gate strong, you know, like...
Yeah, like if you have like this audience
and
or whatever.
CDs and stuff like that.
Yeah.
It's crazy, man.
Yeah. No, I get that. I totally get that.
Like the band we did after Pohgoh, the Maccabees, we did that. We recorded, because originally it was supposed to be a studio project. So we recorded. Then we decided to stay a band. So we were like, well, shit, we've got these CDs on the way. So our very first show as the Maccabees was our CD release show. But we were also coming off the coattails of being Pohgoh, and we still had a little bit of we were still part of the scene and had that kind of built-in interest and following that at the time nobody thought anything about it. You know what I mean? But if we were just some brand new band in Tampa that no one had ever heard of, with people in it, you know, like, who's this band that has CDs and shirts already? Nobody's even heard of this band.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's kind of presumptuous in a way.
No, for sure. Yeah, I agree with that.
You know.
So you already answered this next question. Well, then, yeah, honestly, I'm kind of glad we got through everything I really had so far. My next question was literally, what advice would you give any young aspiring musician? You already answered that, but no, I really appreciate you coming on and talking, because honestly, like, I've learned a lot talking to, like, for example, like having Ray on and him kind of explaining like his whole process and you explaining your process.
Sure.
Like, it's just interesting to hear that, you know what I'm saying? It's like, a lot of people don't really know the behind the scenes of this stuff.
No, and that's, and that was when you told me originally, you said, hey, I want to interview for this thing. And I said, well, what are we going to do? You want to talk about the band? Do you want to talk about the record store? Do you want to talk about the label? You want to talk about being a promoter? And you're like, well, I kind of want to talk about all those things.
Yeah.
And that's what originally piqued my interest.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh, okay, cool. Because like Susie and and Susie primarily, we've done several podcasts recently about Pohgoh.
Okay.
So I was kind of like, well, I don't want to tell the whole same story about why we
Right.
got back together and this and that. Da, da. So when you said that, I was like, oh, this is cool to talk about all these other facets of stuff I've involved in. And plus, I love giving my opinion. And which my wife will tell you, and all of my friends. But yeah, no, I thought that was cool because, like you said, it's almost like, hopefully people will listen to this and maybe something will strike a chord and go, oh shit, we've been doing things like that. Maybe we shouldn't.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Exactly. Like, do you listen to podcasts, for example, at all?
Sometimes.
Yeah. So I listen to a lot, and I find that, just like, for example, I listen to a lot of comedians. Like,
Okay.
funny enough,
Yeah.
I actually don't listen to that many music podcasts. I don't even know if they have them, to be
Right.
honest. But one thing that they talk about a lot is really just like, building like the way to, I guess, how could you say this? To build the scene, like just support each other.
Yeah.
Just be friendly, for example. And it's like not that I wasn't friendly before. I've always been friendly, but it's just more of like, like if you go to a show, stay for all the bands.
Yes.
Man. You know what I'm saying?
Oh
Don't
my
be
God,
don't be an
yes.
asshole and leave. And it's
Drives me
like
nuts.
there's people that do that. It's whatever, man. But like, I don't know. I've always loved music, and like it has been recent where I've just like now I have like an itch to go and like see a live band, even if I don't necessarily like the music. I'm still enjoying the
Yes.
fact that they're doing something in
Yes.
front of me because
Right.
it's amazing.
You're appreciating the art.
Yeah,
the
exactly.
effort. Yeah.
And I love it, man. Like it's so cool. Like just last night we were watching Nomad. I don't know if you've heard of him.
I
But
have not.
He the style of music he was playing is not necessarily my favorite type of music, but just he has a beautiful voice. Like his
Yeah,
guitar
he was doing
playing,
it really well.
It was awesome, man. I was just like I was like super like I don't know. I loved it. It was great.
That's
So,
great.
But I really appreciate it. Hope maybe next time we can have Susie come on. And
Yeah, sure.
Or both of you guys come on. And,
Yeah, sure.
And talk. More. I don't know if she'd be interested in maybe talking like kind of like spreading more awareness about MS. I mean.
Oh, always.
Okay. Cool. But
Always.
But I really do appreciate you coming on, man.
Yeah, dude, not a problem, man. I've had a great time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
See you guys.